Hello and welcome. For those of you who haven't seen me before, my name is Sam. I'm a nutritional therapist and my aim is to help women in their mid-years get through the menopause into the older years as painlessly and easily as possible. And I like to do that really by giving you information that you can utilise and run with. So there's no great explanations on the science from me. Other people do that so much better, but a little bit of understanding helps. So today I want to talk really more about interaction of hormones, and I'm really going to talk about the reproductive hormones, particularly estrogen, cortisol and insulin, and how they sort of dance together, how they can impact each other, and how we can get imbalances or hormonal disruption, and some of the unpleasant side effects of menopause because of this sort of dance that's not quite working together, and what we could do about it. So we all know that when we are disrupted, we feel anxiety, we can have poor sleep, weight gain, all sorts of symptoms are experienced, and it's in a relationship to these hormones. So I'm going to start with the blood sugar, so the insulin. So it's quite an important foundational hormone, insulin, and blood sugar balance is really important. And I find this sort of stretches not just for menopausal women, but across all sorts of imbalances. And when we eat high sugar carbs, our blood sugar goes up, insulin comes out to get rid of it out of the bloodstream, and then we get sudden dips. And this whole sort of continuous cascade of up and down is disruptive. And that impacts cortisol, which is known as our stress hormone, but it's also the hormone that gets us up in the morning. And when it gets out of balance, because it's on high alert all the time, we find sleep difficult. So we need to try and keep this blood sugar level and a much more gentle release into the bloodstream. So the insulin is more gentle, and therefore we're not triggering cortisol perhaps to sort of jump up and down. So to do that, it's really important that we are aware of the type of carbohydrates we're eating, which is where we get the sugars from, and that we eat those with lower sugars in them. And so this is really natural foods, whole foods. So one of the best places to start is removing processed foods from your diet. And I would say do this progressively. Don't try and do it all at once. That's just, for many people, and I'd say majority of people, that's too big an action to do, is take all processed foods out at once if you are actually consuming quite a few. Start with breakfast, work out what you can do, removing those and what replacement there could be. Now, one of the things that's also very useful is eating protein or maybe a healthy fat with the carbohydrate. So for breakfast, for instance, if you decide that you always have toast and jam, swap the jam out for scrambled eggs. And then you've got the protein there to help with the toast. And if you go for a sourdough, wholemeal, whole grain, I do a wholemeal spelt, then that's an improvement, and it's what you're looking for, is an improvement, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it's just a step forward. So start looking at that, reducing the high sugar carbs, being very aware of those, and being aware also if you have a cup of coffee alongside a sweet biscuit, that's going to be aggravating to the blood sugar particularly. So we want to try and get this nice steady flow throughout the day. And another thing you can do is eat 3 regular, nicely timed meals so that you haven't got a massive gap in between them, because then you can get dips in blood sugar. Or if you're fasting, if it's suitable for you to fast, it's not for everybody, then maybe 2 meals a day. Whatever's right for you on that day, because I don't recommend fasting every single day. But trying to avoid snacking, trying to avoid having things at your desk where your blood sugar is going up and down, up and down, up and down, and that can create havoc in the body. What else have we got? I'm going to look at my notes. Exercise is particularly useful here as well. Making sure you get some good regular exercise to help keep using up that sugar basically, so it's utilised rather than having to use insulin to remove it from the bloodstream. But again, be careful with how much exercise you do, because I have had a number of clients in the past that when I look at their exercise, I think, right, they're getting good exercise here. Then I find they're doing 3 classes consecutively at the gym on one day, and you think, well, that's a bit much. You know, you're stressing your body here. You will be kicking that cortisol going, you'll make it go up as opposed to being more steady. So I would be careful with that. I would do exercise if you're not doing it. Again, start gradually. Everything is a gradual change, much easier. And just give yourself, I'll do it on a Wednesday, and now I'll do it on a Saturday, or however it may be for you, rather than saying, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. That generally doesn't help. Give yourself recovery time as well. And they always say this: slow and steady wins the race. We also, so that's insulin and how it affects cortisol, and then there's a knock-on effect to our reproductive hormones as well. When we're highly stressed, we do use a lot of cortisol, and cortisol and our reproductive hormones are formed from the same starting material. And the body always prioritises what's most important. And if stress is heightened, it is that hormone that helps us deal with a danger, to help us get away from or fight that danger. So reproducing is not necessary at that time. So that becomes secondary. So we don't necessarily produce so much of those reproductive hormones when our stress is high. So this is how it impacts. And so if we can keep blood sugar level, keeping cortisol level, that can help support the reproductive hormones as well. We need to clear estrogen. Once we've utilised it, once it's come out, done its job, the idea is then we detox it in the liver and we pass it out through the bowel, through the gut, and we don't hold on to it. Now, if we say you've got problems with your liver detoxification, or perhaps say you're constipated, so your gut's not working fully, we can get this slow removal. And if it stays in the colon for too long, it can be reabsorbed through the colon, back into the bloodstream, go around, and then dock with a cell that has an estrogen receptor and cause some sort of action to occur, which is not planned. And this is where we can get dysfunction. We can get breast tenderness, irregular periods, if we're still having periods, and all sorts of disruptions can go on because it shouldn't be there. So to support our liver, one of the best things to do is include cruciferous vegetables in your diet, and that's cauliflowers, broccolis, cabbages, Brussels sprouts. My boiler's just cutting in. Sorry about that, it's going to be a slight hum in the background. So that's something to keep in mind. That's quite an easy one to add in, is making sure you have one of these sort of cabbage family foods in your diet. And the other thing to do is, if you do have a sluggish bowel, is help support that, and a good sort of balance of fibre, which you can get from a lot of vegetables and fruits, to help get the bowel moving. And the fibre can bind with that excess estrogen and help take it out of the body. So that's just 2 things there to have a think about. When it comes to the cortisol being raised, at midlife we do have a lot of things on our plate, and it can be a stressful time, and cortisol can be called upon throughout the day. We also use cortisol to get us up in the morning. It's that little boost that triggers us to get up, and it should really be higher at the beginning of the day and decline towards the end of the day, so that we can go to sleep. Now, if it's always being boosted, it can get out of balance with the circadian rhythm. So one way to approach that is to get up at the same time every day, and preferably go to bed at the same time every day, but getting up seems to be a sweet point. And getting that first bit of sunlight, looking at this sort of first daylight, helps the circadian rhythm get back into balance and the cortisol to be called upon at that time. So we can help support that with looking after our sort of sleep routine. Another thing you can do, particularly with stress, is breathing exercises, and I've spoken about this before, where you can breathe in, say for 4, hold your breath for 5 and breathe out for 6, or a practice I went through the other day was breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8, and that can be particularly good. Anything that just brings your pulse down a bit, it brings your cortisol down. And a very simple one is power posing. Just 3 minutes of a very powerful position. It helps raise the testosterone and bring down the cortisol. Whether it's effective enough over a longer period, I don't know, but breathing exercises have been shown to be particularly beneficial. So that's it. So we've just double checking. Yes, I put rest and recuperate underneath, which is really important. It's important that we give ourselves the grace to take a moment. As I say, women in the mid-years are doing an awful lot in general. I don't think I've met one woman at midlife who's come to see me who hasn't had a lot on her plate and rarely puts herself first, rarely takes time for herself. And I think if you can do that time, that downtime, a moment, 10 minutes to sit down with a nice cup of tea, a magazine, just something to take your mind away from everything else, or just sit and do your breathing exercises. Really important. So there you go, we've talked about insulin, cortisol, and really estrogen more so. Progesterone is particularly affected when cortisol is high, and of course we need to clear these excess hormones as well. So we've talked about that. So moving away from processed foods, being thoughtful about the timing of your meals, getting some exercise, looking at getting up at the same time each day, getting some good sunlight first thing in the morning, and eating a few cruciferous vegetables and some fibre, and hopefully you will start to see some improvement. And that's what you want, just a step forward all the time. So I hope this has been useful. Please share it with somebody who might benefit, and please like and subscribe if you would wish to. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye bye.